All right, hello again, everybody. Welcome back in. This is the PTU options weekly recap for Friday, October 4. In this video, I thought I would just give a quick recap on some of the trades that I took here this week. Pretty interesting week with the government being shut down for most of the week. I've had a lot of questions come in this week asking me, Mike, how do you handle this type of an event? Okay, with the government shut down, with all this headline risk in the market, do I trade it like normal? And that's exactly what I did this week, and it was a very profitable week. Okay, now I had losing trades in there this week. It was not a perfect week, but what you have to do as a trader is if you're using proper risk, you really need to stay consistent with your trading. Okay, I don't filter out too many trades. The only events that I filter out as a trader, I don't like to trade right in front of a specific earnings release on a stock that's on my watch list. That's the only time I really sit out any type of price action. Okay, I don't really care what the news is. The market has an uncanny way of pricing in the news before we ever have access to it on the retail side. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at some of the trades that I took this week so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Okay, before I do that, just quickly to recap what we had happen this week, just to also kind of start to plan out how we're going to approach the markets next week. These are three of my market overview charts. And what I do with these charts, these track the three major US index products. Okay, I don't look at the cash index products, I look at the ETF. So I've got the ETF tracking the Dow here, which is symbol DIA. I've got the ETF tracking the S&P, which is SPY. And then I also have the ETF that's tracking the NASDAQ, which is symbol QQQ. Now on these charts, very, very simple here. I'm looking at some moving averages. The solid lines here, I've got the 20 MA, which is the solid green line. I've got the 50 period moving average, which is the solid yellow line. And then I have the 200 period moving average, which is this solid red line. The dashed blue line, that is an 89 exponential moving average. And then down here at the bottom, just a very basic view of overall volume. So these are the charts that I look at just to kind of get a very high level view of what the overall market is doing. And over the past, really over the past couple of weeks, the Dow has led the charge to the downside. The Dow has been extremely weak. Okay, it's been pretty beat up, in fact. Whereas over on the NASDAQ's held up quite well. If you look at this Dow, we broke below all of these support levels. So now all of our moving averages, other than the 200 period, are now above us. Okay, this chart is looking pretty weak here. Okay, if we're going to try to bounce and move higher, we have to get through all of these moving averages above us, which are now acting as resistance. And I think that's going to be a pretty difficult task to do. Okay, so heading into next week, I wouldn't be surprised at all if we try to see the market bounce up into this 89 EMA, possibly even to the 50 MA. But to get much above those levels, I would really be surprised. Okay, on the downside, for me, it looks like this 200 period moving average is just kind of acting as a magnet at the moment. I do think we will get down and touch this level before we head up and make new highs. Okay, so 146.81 is the next really big support level below us, and I will be tracking that here early next week. Volume, as expected, on the downside, volume does tend to pick up, and we've seen just that. So that's good to see. You can see going back to July and August, it was a very slow summer as far as volume goes, and we're seeing that pick up nicely as we head into October. So good to see. Hopefully that trend will continue next week. Over on the S&P, pretty messy looking chart here this week. We're just stuck right on top of that 50 period moving average, which is at 168.16. We did close up above it here today to end the week. However, next week we do have that 20 period moving average at 169.61 above us. That will act as resistance. We also have that 170 level above us that will also act as resistance. So I would be surprised if we saw a pretty strong break above those levels next week. I do believe that we will get down and test both the 89 EMA, which is at 166.08, and also 165 on the downside. I do not believe the lows are in yet. Okay, we've seen a nice pullback on the S&P. I do think we will head lower yet before we move right back up to the highs. Okay, finally on the NASDAQ, This is symbol QQQ. Notice how the 20-period moving average has acted as support here a couple of times now. It's a pretty strong line in the sand here. So until that level is broken on a closing basis, I do think the NASDAQ is just going to continue to grind higher. Now, if this market does roll over, this has been the strong one out of the bunch. If we get a close below that 20 MA next week, there's a lot of room on the downside. I think we could see a pretty ugly move lower. Okay, so heading into next week, all that considered, I do expect us to head lower. We may try to bounce early in the week depending on if there's news out of Washington over the weekend. But I do think a lot of markets are still way overdone on the upside. We have a lot of stocks that are still just grinding higher near the upper end of the ranges that they've been in. So I do think we have room on the downside, and that's what I'll be looking at next week. So to stay consistent here, I do want to go back over to my reversal workspace. This is what I walked through last week. And let's just kind of take a look at some of the most recent trades. We'll take a look at what happened here this week. So we'll start out with symbol DIA. Again, this is the ETF that tracks the Dow. Okay, now we had this short trade. This one triggered in back on the 27th. Okay, and we just hit target here on the 3rd. Okay, we just hit target on that move lower here on Thursday. Okay, so this was a really, really nice trade on the downside. It was close to a 100% winner on the options. Okay, basically doubled my money. Okay, now the thing about this system, we're looking for market extremes. This is what is known as our active swing trader reversal setup. And we utilize the percent R indicator to identify the market extreme. So when we get up above the 90 reading here, that gives us our overbought condition. Once we get a close below our signal line up here, that gave us the short setup originally. And we played that move to the downside. Very, very nice, quick move. Now this overbought reading, that stays in effect until we drop down below the 50 level. Okay, so that's why once price action closed up above the signal line and then back down below, that's what gave us our next short signal right here. Okay, we're still trying to work off of this overbought condition. So we took 2 winners on the downside. Okay, now on this move lower, we did get oversold. Okay, we got down below the 10 reading on percent R. Once we got a close up above the signal line, which happened here earlier today, we got a long setup. So for next week, we will be looking to get long on DIA. That entry's at 150.57. Okay, if we do trigger long, we'll be looking at 152.20 as a first target, 153.17 as a second target, and the stop is down at 148.78. Okay, so again, this system, it's not super active. Okay, we're looking for those extreme readings throughout the year. So if I look at our performance going back to the middle of February, well, we've had 13 trades. Okay, we've had 13 trades. We've got a 69% win rate. We've got a really nice profit factor here telling me that my winners are well larger than my losers. That's a really nice formula for success. So as you can see, okay, 13 trades going back to February. You know, it's not super active, but it just does a phenomenal job of identifying those market extremes, which is exactly what I'm looking for. Okay, so that was symbol DIA. We'll see how this trade plays out next week if the market does decide to bounce. Okay, Apple. On Apple, pretty quiet week for us overall. We're still working off of this winning long trade. Okay, this one worked out really, really well. We hit target back on the 23rd, but we haven't had an extreme reading since. Okay, you can see on percent R, we're just kind of bouncing sideways here inside of the 90 and the 10 levels. So for us to take another setup, we need to see another extreme reading, either above the 90 or below the 10 on percent R. So pretty quiet week for us on Apple. If I show you the performance here, again, going back to February, well, we've taken 7 trades. So again, not super active. I'm not looking for frequency on this setup. I'm looking for the extreme readings. Well, we've won 7 trades in a row. Okay, we haven't had a losing trade on Apple going back to February. Okay, so as you can see, it just does a great job of identifying those extreme market conditions when they happen. Okay, so we're currently flat on Apple. All right, Google it did have a short setup, which we did exit this week. And what happened here is when we come down and hit the first target, the system knows to move the stop down to break even. And that's what we did. And we did get taken out here yesterday with a break-even trade. So not ideal. Okay, the trade looked great initially. I thought we were going to get some extension down to that second target, but we have to stay true to the system. We have to reduce risk. When we get that much profit on the table, we do have to reduce risk, and we did get out of this trade with a break-even result. So again, that was the reversal short setup that was working off of our overbought condition down here on %R. At this point, we are starting to get oversold. So next week, we could be looking at a reversal on the long side. If the market does decide to bounce here, we would be looking at a long setup on Google. But at the moment, we do not have any open orders. We don't have any trades on the table. We're just waiting for the next setup. FXI, this is an ETF that tracks some of the Chinese markets. And again, we did close out of this short trade. We did get short because of the overbought reading on %R. We got short, and this one did hit target on the 30th. Okay, really nice move to the downside, really nice return on the options. Okay, again, is this system super active? No, we're just looking for extreme readings throughout the year. Okay, so at this point, heading into next week, okay, we're starting to consolidate here on FXI. We don't have an extreme reading here. Okay, we need to wait for the market to either move up above 90 or below 10 on %R. That's where we'd be looking for our next setup. So FXI, again, going back to earlier this year, going back to March, we've taken 7 trades. We have a 71% win rate. Again, really nice profit factor, telling me my winners are larger than my losers. So it's a great system. It's a great system to have in your arsenal if you're looking to diversify a little bit. Okay, if you want a system that allows you to change up what you're doing, if you're a day trader, this is a great way to get involved with some longer term charts. Okay, and it allows you to do so and not feel like you have to be in the market every day. Okay, again, on FXI going back to March, we've had 7 trades. Okay, so heading into next week, we're currently flat on FXI. And then finally on Netflix, very similar story to Google. We did get overbought. I mean, Netflix we've seen a pretty amazing move to the upside. We're at all-time highs on Netflix. Just refuses to move to the downside. We did get this trade here yesterday that triggered in. Okay, we got overbought on %R. We got a close below the signal line, and that gave me the short trade that did trigger in. And we actually went down to hit first target pretty quickly. Unfortunately, we came in this morning and the market was pretty strong all day, and it did take us out with a break-even position. So unfortunately, we are flat on Netflix. So heading into next week, notice here on %R, we did not drop below the 50 level. Okay, so the chart is still going to consider Netflix overbought. So if we do get Netflix to roll back over to the downside and close back down below the signal line, that will give us the potential to get back on board another short trade, which I do like Netflix on the short side. I do think this is one of the markets that is very overdone and due for a pullback. So we'll see if that plays out here next week. So if you don't have access to the reversal setup at this point, okay, not a problem. The great part about the system is we will give you access to it for free on 3 of my favorite markets. Okay, so all I need you to do, and let me shrink this down so you can see the link. All you need to do is go to premiertraderuniversity.com/free options reversal, and you'll have access to all of the custom indicators at no charge to you. So you can go ahead and take a look at the system, just see how it has performed over the last few months. I've already shown you a bunch of the numbers here today. It's a great setup. It's been one of my favorites here over the past number of years. All right, so that's what I'm looking for heading into next week. Hopefully you all had a great week of trading, and I will talk to you next week.